This is a support podcast with Mike and Ryan. What's up, Mike?
Hey Ryan, how's it going, man?
Good, good.
Well, this is gonna be this is number 4. So
Take
we're gonna
take 20.
take 20. Yep. This is I think out of all the podcasts, this is the hardest one to do. It's probably the shortest one, but for some reason we just don't want to get this thing right. But we're gonna be talking about voting today. The election's coming up on Tuesday, so early voting is coming to an end. And you need to vote on Tuesday. So I believe you cannot vote on Monday. Is that correct?
I don't see why not. I mean, I don't think you can go in the booths. Maybe you can, but you definitely can put in your vote if you have early voting stuff. I don't know. I don't know all the research on it. Like for me, I did in-person voting I think in 2016, and then when you're there, you can sign up for mail-in ballots, and then I did that like right away because my first experience showing up, I waited there for like 4 hours, and that was in 2016. Oh wait, was it 2016?
Really?
Or was it even before that? Maybe it was 2012. I don't remember. I think it was 2012. Sorry, but yeah, it was a really long time because I did it on election day. So,
So what time did you go? Can you give us a little bit of tell us the step by step on what happened in 2016 for you? Because that did not happen for me. So it was very quick.
So I probably got the date wrong. 2016 was only 4 years ago. I think I actually voted in 2008, 2000, and 2000. I voted in every single presidential election. This is the first, whoever the last one was the first midterms I ever voted in. So when was that? 2018. But when I went to my first presidential one, yeah, I went like midday. I think I was working at Publix back then, and it was just the line. I'm in Largo. So the line was just out the door, and it went around the whole. It was a giant building,
Wow.
and it's still a giant building, and it went around the whole, like a big square, and it was rough. Now, the good thing about those lines is like voting itself doesn't take long. Like physically, it doesn't take that long of a time to like sit there and vote. I hope. So the line keeps moving, but yeah, I mean, if it's raining, if there's coronavirus, like you really don't want to have to sit there and do that. So that's why I signed up for the early voting as soon as I could, because it's a pain.
Yeah, I did. I was similar. Mine was the first time I ever voted was 2004 because I was 17 in 2000 when the first election that I thought I was going to be able to vote in was a couple of months late. So I turned 18 a little bit after. So I did miss that one. But in 2004, I voted for the first time, and actually I was in school. I was in Tampa, so I had to drive back home. Even though I worked in Tampa, I drove back home to Newport Richey, which is where my hometown is, and voted down the street from where my mom lived because I hadn't changed my license.
I was gonna say you have to vote in certain places. I didn't even think of that.
So when when I moved to Tampa to go to school in the early 2000s, I think people, there was a lot of hearsay back and forth. If you leave your house and you move to another place, you change your license because that's really important. I did not change my license for 7 or 8 years. So I lived in Tampa and I had my home address on my license for a very long time. So I lived at school for most of the time, and then either I had an apartment or I did come back to my mom's house for the summer or something like that. So instead of having to change it if I moved every year, I just left it at my mom's until I purchased my house is really what happened. But either way, I drove down from Tampa, and I thought it was going to be very similar. Everyone said, prepare, go really early. So I got up really, really early, and I went at like I don't know, it was like 7 or 7:30 or something. Whenever
I think they go like 7 to 7. At least over here, it's like 7 to 7.
I believe that's exactly what it was. I think it was 7 when I went, and there was nobody in line, and there was nobody there except for the people that were, the pollsters or whatever you want to call them.
Sure, yeah.
The watchers. So that was in 2004, and then in 2008 I did the same thing, but I did it at night, and it was actually the same. There was nobody there. So anytime we went home and we were watching these people on TV, and they were just like you said, they were out there for 4 or 5 hours, and we're seeing it this year. People are still out there in early voting. They were out there for 7 or 8 hours just the last couple of days. So people are taking their time off, and it sounds like a lot of companies are giving them their right to vote, which is really great. And I think this is probably going to be the biggest turnout in history. I think we just talked about this. 2008 might have been the first one, the highest, maybe.
I brought up
And
Wikipedia. Yeah, and it was in 2008 was a really high turnout, and that was really high turnout of eligible voters. It was 57%, and I think they're thinking this one's going to be 62% of eligible voters. So not like the whole country, the people who can actually vote. So,
yeah, it's crazy. You don't think that. You think that, with millions and millions and millions of people voting, that your vote doesn't matter. But I remember in 2000 when there was it was like 500 votes.
it was
And
something astronomically small. It was crazy.
It was crazy. Out of 5 or 6 million votes in Florida, the electoral votes for Florida were determined by 500 or 600 votes. And with that whole, I can't remember what it was called. Do you remember the hanging Chad? I believe it was called the issue with the ballot, having the folded ballot and all that
Sure.
stuff was causing issues. But so nobody really knows who won the presidency in 2000. We still say, right? That joke?
Yeah, I mean
No.
they had to recount everything, right? And there's
They did,
so
but-
many ballots that like, who knows? Like, you know what I mean? So that's why it's important for these to be decisive. You know what I mean? And it's why it's important to get out and vote. Like, it's just what you got to do. And yeah, I mean, I'm happy this year that we were able to, at least for me, I was able to do mail-in voting, and I convinced my wife to do the same thing, so she did too. The first day that you could drop off the mail-in ballots was, I think, October 19th. I could get that wrong, but it wasn't that long ago. It was a few weeks ago. And she had to wait in line to drop it off. I didn't want to.
Really?
Yeah, I didn't want to mail it in because of all the drama with the mail, right? So I dropped it in at the polling place, and yeah, there was a car line to drop it off. They come and take it, but yeah, and she said that there was a line around the building to physically vote on October 19th.
We did very similarly. I thought it was October 13th.
I don't remember.
But the week of the second or third week of October when it came out, same thing. We got our mail-in ballots, and we filled it out and went to the post office to go hand it to them the same day to make sure that there was no chances that we were going to lose out on making sure that we get voted, get our votes counted. So, yeah, I didn't think I was actually going to care this much, to be real honest. I hadn't always been really big into politics. I try really hard to stay happy, so politics don't generally make me the happiest person in the world. It's usually one person against another person, and it ends up causing a whole big thing. So I try to stay away from it the best I can, unless I'm going to troll a little bit, maybe poke at somebody just as a joke. But honestly, I try really hard to just keep my head down and do my normal work. So, but this is a big one. We want to make sure. Like I said, I think that this is going to be one of the highest turnouts. So,
I was going to say, like, you can't comment, or in my opinion, you can't comment or say your place unless you voted, right? Like, that's the whole point.
I was just going to say the opposite of that.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, because honestly, then the other argument would be if you voted for that person and that person went in, then you were part of the problem too. Is the other argument, which is actually
that's a big thing right now,
I believe. But no, I believe that. Honestly, I think that anybody can complain about whatever they want to complain about. They do it anyway, and they're gonna. So
I think the problem.
Or not,
I was gonna say, I think the problem is that. So voting is supposed to be like anonymous, like that you vote and it's anonymous. Like you put it in a secrecy sleeve and then you put it in. The problem is that everybody like tells everybody what they vote for, right? I think that it's something that you should kind of keep to yourself. I mean, you can tell your close friends, but you shouldn't be announcing like this because it's your opinion. You do what you want. You have your reasons. But at the same time, if you do have an opinion that's going to be very strong, you better be out there sharing that opinion with a vote. That's what it's for, right?
At very least, right. If that's the most powerful opinion you can have because it can actually do something. Your opinion just yelling at somebody on Facebook really isn't going to do much. The chances of you swaying your friend or your foe on Facebook to go from one political party to another is probably pretty slim. So you're right. You're absolutely right. Your strongest weapon is actually is to vote. So, there's a couple places that you can go if you are wanting to make sure that you're registered.
Because
Going
it's too
to
late now,
vote,
right?
yeah, to register to vote, it's too late. But if you are registered, and maybe you just didn't know you're registered, go to vote.org, and that has all the information that you need. Honestly, it's probably the best place to just go and make sure that it's, there's no partisanship. So it's not making sure it's, you're not worried about getting pulled one direction or another. It's just information on how to vote in your state and your area. So,
You can also, I think I did this on, I don't know if it was on vote.org, but I think it was. You can check to see if your vote was already counted. But there are websites where you can check to see if your vote was already counted to make sure it actually made it there. That's another big one.
right. Yeah, I think it's like status, isn't it? Do we have a website for that? Maybe we can put that if we don't
Tried
know
looking.
it. We can put it down.
Yeah, I'll put it in the description of the YouTube when I find it. So, but yeah, that's the first thing I did. Once we dropped it off, I waited like a few days, and then I checked to make sure that I was actually counted, and it feels good knowing that it did get counted and that it's going to be part of it. And the signature thing was a big thing.
Yeah, that's the same. When we put everything in there, we had to make sure that we signed everything and we folded everything. Everything was signed properly, and there is a way to track it, and we were able to track ours exactly the way you said it. That we made sure that it was counted. So as long as the votes counted, I feel really good about where we're at. And then we'll finally be done with this election year. I'm just really excited to be done with it now.
Yeah,
at this
it's
point.
just draining. And
yeah,
I honestly, like, the way I feel is regardless of how it turns out, it doesn't matter because it'll be done. It'll be done. Like that's how it's been for 4 years. There's been a ton of drama with what's going on, regardless of opinions on it. But it's just like it's exhausting. I think no matter what for anybody. So once we get past this, it'll be done.
2020 is one of the weirdest years I think we have all been part of at this point. There's we can joke or whatever about it, but I personally have had a pretty tough year. And I try not to leak my stuff all over everybody I know, but the important part is that I think that everybody has to empathize with each other, know that we're all going through some stuff, and knowing that is easier to deal with some of this stuff, is that I'm not alone in this, and same to you, same to everybody else out there, is that we're all dealing with some stuff, and if you can try to ease some of that stress in some way. And I got really, really heavily into some political stuff probably about 6 or 8 months ago, probably in the beginning of the pandemic, and it most likely was because we were stuck inside and there was not as much
to do. Yeah, what's the point?
Yeah, so you're watching the news a lot, but we ended up making a conscious decision to turn off the news because you can't watch that for too long. It gets really depressing, no matter who you vote for or who you are backing. It doesn't matter. You're dealing with a lot of people that are fighting a battle, and it's gets a little draining after a while. So we found a good happy medium over the last several months, and now that it's winding down, it's you can feel it. It's palpable. So once this week's over, it'll be nice to at least get back to day-to-day stuff, hopefully, and fighting this pandemic and getting this out of here. But that's what I got here. You got anything else to add?
Nope. That's pretty much it. We just wanted to get people out to vote. If you haven't, if you can't vote because you didn't get to register, try to find people that who are registered and try to get them to vote. At least try to do something you can. And it's not just the presidential election. It's also going to be, like your local judges and your counselors and stuff like that in the House, like with your local government. That's really important as well.
Which is really the most important part,
yes.
Right? Because the president is the president, and he really doesn't have, he or she doesn't have nearly as much power as your local representatives do. And
in terms of affecting you.
Right, correct. And it's those people that you are concerned for and concerned about when you're trying to talk about the things that you want to change in your area or around your community. So make sure that you are doing the research and finding out who you think is good to represent you and your community. Is probably the most important part. Yeah, everybody wants to vote for the president, and that's going to be the highest amount of votes for sure.
Because it's easy.
Research.
That's the thing. I feel like it's easy, but when you get down to like page 4 or 5, or whatever it is, you can get sample ballots. But the point is they have amendments to different local laws and stuff like that, and they they have, like, for instance, your sheriff. So if your sheriff is not supportive of what's going on with Black Lives Matter, whether they support it or not, you can make those decisions off that. That is important. That affects your region. So you need to do your research and make those choices. Try to vote on every single checkbox you can there.
And that's it. So
Cool.
Go out there and vote. Good luck. And next week is going to be a big week. Next podcast is going to be a big podcast. We're going to be talking about family. And we're going to have our colleague Sarah will be joining us, and tune in because it's going to be pretty interesting.
Yep. Cool.
All right. It's a pleasure, Ryan. We'll see you
All right.
soon.
See ya.